love riding my bike. I love running. I don't care what they think about it. I love it.
At that point, when I knew I was going to win, chills just went up and down my entire body.
I don't believe there are any good or bad foods. Food is food.
I still feel so passionate about getting that record that I'm like, I'm just going to do it.
As an athlete, I was like, what's my story, or what's your story? What can you learn from it? And what can you teach people?
Welcome to the IronWomen podcast. I'm Haley Chura, and I'm joined by Alyssa Godesky. Alyssa, you are coming to us from Nice, France, just one day after the Women's Ironman World Championships in Nice. How are you doing?
Oh man, Haley, I took a 2.5-hour nap today. Gives you any indication of how I'm doing. But
and we should be clear, like you spectated and coached. Yes. You were not racing, but yes. Still, that is how difficult spectating and coaching is for an Ironman. It is not for the
faint of heart. Yeah. And I am wearing my Not Here to Play Nice shirt, and I think they have a few extras that are available on the Feisty shop if people want to order them. Super fun little kind of, souvenir shout out to the race here in Nice. But okay, so after my nap though, I woke up feeling great, and I'm like actually being a little productive here before I travel tomorrow. And it's hard to even believe that this happened yesterday, because we woke up today to thunderstorms pouring down rain. I mean, Hillary Biscay was here with me, and we were like, okay, she was leaving today. I was like, let's get in a little shakeout swim, before you travel. So we wake up and we look outside. I was like, I think I hear water. And we look outside, just pouring. And we were like, and then a crack of thunder and lightning. So I was like, I guess we're not swimming in the ocean this morning for a little shakeout. So had that been, yes, 24 hours earlier, totally different day. But luckily, it wasn't. And I think the day still brought with it some challenges for everyone, but luckily not that kind of a challenge. And so it was just kind of like a weird, it was like all of the days leading up to the race have been pretty warm and sunny and things like that. So then it's like more of like a cozy day here. So it's nice kind of for post race. You can just kind of pull up. I needed to do a lot of work today and catch up. It's like a regular work day at this point. But I think for the athletes, it probably was like a whoa, whew, thank goodness this wasn't yesterday type of thing.
Thank goodness, because yesterday the weather looked pretty favorable. I recorded an interview with Fiona Moriarty, who raced, which we'll listen to later. And I got to watch a lot of the coverage from home. I had this plan where I think it started at 9:15 for me PM here in Montana. And I had this plan where I'm just going to watch this swim and I'm going to bed. And then I got sucked in. And then eventually I was texting with one of my athletes who was in Eastern time, and she was even up late watching, and I was like, Sam, I gotta go to bed. At a certain point, I'm like, this is too much fun, but I was like, I am not in France, and I do need to sleep at some point. But it was so good. But the big thing in the first part of the morning was the announcement that the wetsuit the temperatures had dropped, and I had, been looking at some of the content, the social media content that had been coming out pre-race, and it did look like a lot of people wearing jackets and sweatshirts. And I was curious if it was cold there.
So when I got here, I too, I had packed my suitcase by the time I saw people in rain jackets and puffy coats and things. And I was like, well, none of that has made it in my suitcase, so I'm not doing that, and so I didn't bring it. And like I said, the days I was here before the race had been really nice, very warm. The mornings were chilly, but honestly, I think for me, it was a lot like Vermont weather, cool mornings in the 50s, right? Getting up to sunny and 70s in the day. So I think I was probably just pre-acclimated to that. It didn't feel cold to me. And that's kind of the similar with the water. So Hillary and I did swim in those days leading up to it. And we didn't bring a wetsuit out here. I wasn't going to schlep my wetsuit out. And so granted, I'm not the fittest person right now, so I have a little bit extra keeping me warm these days, but, and I have been swimming in open water in Vermont, which also I'm sure helps my acclimatization to colder water, but it actually felt really nice. I was definitely one of those people that was like, man, if it's wetsuit swim, I would be quite hot, I would honestly be thinking heavily about a sleeveless, just because I always run hot in the water. I'm working really hard when I'm swimming in those kinds of swims. And so I think I would be erring on that side of things. But the days leading up, it was actually so nice. Haley, the water is really nice here. It's very clear. And I think we talked to a lot of people who were like, it's not clear. And we were like, no, it's clear, but you're just like, it's deep, right? Like you're just seeing down to the bottoms of the depth of the ocean, and it gets deep really fast. And so, and it's not necessarily the aquarium swim that Kona is at times, but you do see the occasional fish and the occasional jellyfish and things like that. But it was nice swimming, and I don't really like ocean saltwater swims, but I was like, okay, I could handle this. Like it didn't seem too bad. It did look like there were more swells and chop, and everyone was saying that on race day. I think that was kind of a definite thing. But yeah, I think that could have been Madame Pele like sending a few Kona swim vibes out this way for people to make sure that they got that taste of the ocean and what it could do. But I think that, yeah, I was surprised that it had dropped cold enough to be wetsuits, but I mean, it's just a good lesson, right? Like even the pros should be prepared for everything. Like I heard Fiona saying that, she kind of had that feeling, right? And so she had luckily traveled here with that and brought it. And so that was good. But and I'm hoping pros kind of generally do that, but that would definitely be quite a twist in the morning if you weren't ready for that.
Yeah, from the start, it looked like everyone was ready. All the pro women were in wetsuits, so we're glad they got those wetsuits. And were you down at the swim start? Did you get to see that?
So no, we ended up kind of camping out a little bit further down the course because I will say my knee had held up really great in the first few days of walking, but we were trying to limit, I was definitely trying to limit the amount of time on feet and knowing it was going to be a long day already. So I chose to kind of wait for, we were watching the coverage basically for the swim start. And then we're seeing people as they were coming out on the bike, maybe less than a mile down the course. And so I was able to watch the coverage online and see it was, a bit of confusion at the start, but I kind of feel like it's always that way. Like even in Kona, there's always some paddle boarder out there, right? There's always people drifting up in the start. There's always some kind of because it's the ocean and there's swells, right? There's currents, people aren't staying behind, how do you stay behind the buoys, right? So it seemed just like a pretty typical ANSI normal swim start, right? Were you watching from home, getting excited? What were your thoughts and feelings kind of leading up to that point?
So nervous. I was so nervous before the start. I was
tracking your heart rate,
watching the body marking and everything. I was so nervous, but I was also so impressed with everyone who gave interviews, and I loved the insight. I got to kind of just be a fan of the sport, and I don't always get that angle. And I think that was really fun. I think that I came away with just this incredible admiration for every single person who was going through body marking, who was setting up their transitions, who was putting on their wetsuits and heading down to that swim start. I will say, watching the swim start, I was watching them kind of inch forward and we're foot forward. They were from those two buoys. And I was like, are they supposed to be at the buoys? And having done Kona is very, very, I find it very stressful. It was more stressful when I was an age grouper and it was the mass start. So there were 2,000 people lining up, and it was just very, very stressful. And I was going to die when I did that. A little bit better when it's just the pro women, but it is pretty much an art how the paddlers are in Kona. I think a lot of those paddlers have been doing that for decades. And so they know what they're doing. They're very aggressive. They're like, I'm taking bib numbers or, cap number. And it's a little bit stressful, and they're circling and there's no space. So you really cannot move forward in Kona because it's just a constant line of paddlers. And then they turn so that they are perpendicular to the swimmers. And then you kind of have to, when the cannon goes, and then you go. And so you hopefully are not running into a paddler. And in this case, it did not seem like there were quite the line of paddlers. I think people were on stand-up paddle boards, which I think might be a little bit harder to navigate and keep certain. And there was at least one that turned pretty far out and was in the middle of the pack. And that was a little stressful for me watching it. I'm watching it and telling myself and, trying to telepathically tell everyone who's in the water, it's a long day. You're going to be okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But it was can you imagine at the beginning of your day, you run straight into a paddle boarder, but it happens, as Fiona said, it happens, you run into a buoy, you run into a paddler, and it actually is kind of part of the sport.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I will say kudos to Ironman, the coverage, and even what they were pushing out constantly onto social media, the reels and stuff. I thought they did a really good job with those kinds of interviews. I thought it was just like more interesting than normal. I thought they were asking good questions, fun questions, like really getting to the heart of who some of these athletes are and things like that, which it seems like they have shifted kind of who's doing a lot of that social media. And I will say all throughout the day, there was people on rollerblades with cameras and like bikes. Like, I mean, constantly you were seeing them up and down the course, just like getting footage, right? And like every kind of person, every, you know, from the pros to the age groupers and things like that. And I think that I definitely appreciate that kind of concerted effort. I think that's doing a lot for the sport. And yeah, I'm sure it made having to, you know, be at home and watch the coverage a lot more interesting.
I agree. And I think between the Ironman and Feisty social media and a couple other outlets that were there, it was really, really cool social media coverage. I personally love, my favorite is the slow-mo of all the women walking into the press conference. Like, I know that they did that last year as well, but I just love those videos. I don't know. They've done a better job like with their music selections. And I just do think, yeah, I agree that like, I felt like I was like, oh, and it's weird for me too. I'm like, oh my goodness, I like have raced these women.
Yeah.
I have like this weird thing. And I'm like, look at how cool they are. And look at how cool they look walking into this press conference.
Yeah.
But okay, so we watched the swim. I mean, it was a fast swim, and it also had, you know, interest. Like they talked a lot about Lucy Charles not being there and how that changed the dynamic. And to me, like it wasn't that surprising who was in that front group. I've swam with Marta Sanchez and Fenella Langridge and Lauren Brandon and Lottie Vilms. I expected them to be in the group. And then you did have Kat Matthews, which was a surprise. I think Marjolaine Pierre being in the top group was also a surprise. And even Chelsea Sodero being not too far back off that front group. I think that those women had fantastic swims. So
yeah, it gave
really
you a
set
good
themselves
taste
up.
of the day. Like, yeah, like in hindsight, looking at that, right? It's like that probably told us a lot of what we needed to know about the day, like who was going to be willing to like hang on for dear life and like throw themselves fully into this race, you know, because someone like Kat Matthews and Chelsea were, you know, like clawing their way through it and making sure that they didn't get left behind. I think that was probably a major concern on a course like this with all of the climbing. So it was fun to see. And, you know, certainly Lucy was missed. And I think you know, who knows what having her in the swim mix would have done to change up the dynamic. But I think, like you said, like it was not too surprising, right? The people that did rise to the top there.
And, you know, I felt that was one of the things with the coverage. I did actually feel like there was a lot of mention of Lucy, and I know I'm doing that right now, but I think that's maybe also a little unfair to the athletes who are in the race because they can only race who's there. And it's really hard to race a ghost of someone. So while it was big news, I do feel like the races that the women who were in the front put together were incredible and, you know, should not be discounted at all.
Yeah, and I think you get Kelly O'Mara's triathlonish newsletter. She did one that came out like late last night after the race with some good tidbits. And I think it was in that she kind of had this good, she said she had talked to Tim Don at some point, right, in his career and was just like, you know, oh yes. This is how
it's okay. We can't tell the men apart.
This is oh, that's amazing. Lydia, please do not edit that one out. So so yeah, Sebastian Kienle was just like, you know, there's like 15 people who have the honest shot of winning on a day, you know, in a world championship. And then, you know, people get injured, people get sick, people don't show up, right? And so like everything gets shuffled around. At the end of the day, you have like 4 people, right, left to beat on the day. And like it happens every year. It happens you know, at every race, really. That's kind of like how racing works. And so it is, I think all of those women were fit and ready to race their hardest on the day. Like, you know, and tactics maybe changed a bit because certain people weren't there or, you know, had to leave the day early and things like that. But I think that just even makes some of the performances more impressive because they were able to kind of, what's the word, like amend, like change, right? They were like able to kind of just go with the flow of the race day and keep rising to the top and keep pushing.
I agree. So you were about a mile down the bike course. So you got to see the athletes heading out on
Mhm.
the bike loop. But it sounds like you probably never saw Anna Haug.
No, no. And so, yeah, that was the big question mark. I probably found out around the same time, other people did as we're refreshing the social media and kind of waiting for the word of like what happened. And oh, just heartbreaking to see that video of her and what happened. And I just, she was in my picks for the win. And so selfishly, I like to win my picks whenever I do them. I had 2 of my 3, not with Lucy and Anne out, not going for it. But I mean, obviously that aside, it's just like gutting to watch someone like her.
And it was a flat tire. For anyone who missed that, she did get a flat tire just out of transition, unable to repair it, and there was no mechanical support able to get her a spare wheel or help her. And so I feel for her as someone who got a flat tire in my last race, but was able to get neutral support and a wheel. And I'm very thankful I was able to finish that race. And I also think in a race like Nice, like she would have been fine, like losing some time. And I think she would have, could have still worked her way back up to the front. And so that is really too bad to have her end her day there. But she's also had an incredible season, already went that 8:02 in Roth, and she's not done. She's racing Ibiza this weekend and still has the T100 series. And yes, she was a lot of people's picks. A lot of people's picks had Annie Haug in the top 3, if not for winning. And she did seem very ready. And I'm sad we didn't get to see what she could do on the course. But as you mentioned, as Kelly's newsletter mentioned, it is almost part of the sport, how hard it is. And I see that with age group athletes I coach and myself. I'm, in the process of I wish I was more packed for an Ironman. And it's just like, why is this so hard? There's so much stuff and it's so particular and it's so difficult. And then I try to remind myself and I try to remind my athletes that this is actually part of the sport. This is part of the hard part of getting to the start line and then getting all your equipment and having everything go right on the day. And you kind of have to give yourself a pat on the back, even when, you just manage to like get through it without any major issues.
Yeah, definitely. So, but we did see the others head out. And then, I will say it was, my impression was definitely that I was like, wow, this bike, very early, like kind of thought and impression was like, this bike is going to favor the people, age groupers and pros who are used to long days by themselves. Right. There were certainly some of the more for the age group racing, some of the more kind of common swim times, right? Definitely had, groups of people kind of coming through, flowing more at that time. But there was a lot of loneliness you could see in that first mile, even, which is drastically different than Kona when, the age group racing would be kind of combined. And so they just head out for that one loop and it's like, whew, all right, hope you are used to the next, right, 6.5 to 8 hours, right, plus on the bike by yourself. And I hope you are ready to eat more and be more prepared than you have been, because I think that is a very different dynamic to have it be just potentially you could see, you will see a lot less people when it's a hard bike course, right, and it's one loop. And I think though that people were excited. I mean, there's so much chatter in the days before about the bike course, and I think people were ready to get that part over with and just be out there. But it was, that was my kind of initial thought of okay, I hope these women are ready to put the pedal to the metal for the next few hours and embrace that that loneliness. But it sounds and I didn't get a chance to drive the course or see much of it. And so what I saw was a lot of the coverage that I caught. So similar to what you saw, and it looked so beautiful and so fun up there. So I'm hopeful, and it sounds like that did help kind of pass the time a little bit for some of those racing.
Yeah, no one I talked to said they were ever bored, even though they might have been out there an hour longer than the race, the Ironman that they qualified on. I do think that no one was bored with it, but they were out there longer. And I had raced there in 2019. I raced the 70.3 Worlds and I was having flashbacks. I mean, so a lot of the roads were kind of similar, and the climb, and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I've done that. But I did love some of the drone footage because it did show just how beautiful that area is. And honestly, it looked much better than I remembered it. I have like nightmares about some parts of that course still, but it looked a lot more appealing from the coverage. And I think watching this woman navigate it, and Fiona talks about that in the interview about how she does think it was a course that if you did have specific knowledge that it probably helped. But then I think in one of the social media updates, one of the Biscay coaching athletes, Amy Height, said she was glad she hadn't seen the descent before race day.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it's up to people how they want to deal with, it's not easy, right? It's probably scary to most people to descend that kind of terrain on a time trial bike. And so, one of the most common themes we had
It's the length of it. Like I remember in 70.3 Worlds, I was descending for like an hour in a 70.3.
Yeah, and you've already ridden, right? 80 or 90 miles. So it's like, the most common theme we got from age group athletes kind of coming back is like, and people are always so glad. They're like, thank God I'm off the bike, right? In Kona. And you get to that part and you're like, okay, but usually I feel like that's because of the heat, right? Your butt is tired from sitting on the saddle. Your arms are tired from holding you like steady in the wind, right? Things like that. And you're just ready to be done riding your bicycle. But this time, from what we can tell, it actually seemed a lot more like mental fatigue from athletes. Like obviously the physical fatigue was there, but it was totally like the mental fatigue factor for the bike was definitely something that was upped in this. And I think that it caused a lot more, when you're mentally tired, right, going into the run, like that makes you physically more tired for the running, right? So that's something interesting, I think, for people who, not everyone is going to be having a flexible enough life to like come out and train on this course or come out and, whatever. But I think if you are looking to do this course, I think trying to get yourself in places, whether it's in your home or nearby or whatever, like to do some rides where you are having to be mentally challenged, right? And not just on the standard route you ride every week, and like, stretch yourself out of your comfort zone, however that might be working for you where you are riding, because that mental fatigue factor I think was real, whether, and I think some of it's just from the built up anxiety leading into race day, and then it's all coming out during the race, and then they're just like, it's over, and your body's kind of like releasing that energy. But I think that it definitely showed in people's runs that like the mental fatigue, a marathon is really hard to do when you're mentally tired.
Yes. And this marathon was 4 laps right along that promenade, and it looked like it was nice weather. I know Fiona mentioned tailwind out, headwind back, and I have done one race, one Ironman that was a 4-lap course. I love laps. Was that, generally the vibe that you liked? I'm sure as a coach you liked the laps because you got to see your athletes so many times.
Yeah, I mean, to see people that much was amazing, right? And and to like be able to stay put, right, for the most part, if you wanted to, and like you could kind of get up and down the course if you needed to. If someone was in kind of a battle in their age group, we could do that. But for the most part, picking your spot and staying there was a really easy way to see your athlete many, many times, which was great. And it seemed like people liked it. I think there was a lot of support. I know it got pretty lonely out there, but, instead of having to do, 15 miles of loneliness on the Queen K, right? It's like you're doing a mile or two and then you're like back in the fun zone, right? So it's almost, I like loops too. I like the 4 loops in Copenhagen. I think it's just easy to like think in 4s and like think about being like, okay, 3 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles, 3 miles. Like, I think that's just like easy way to just only, take a small bite of the marathon.
You can run a 5K. You can run a 5K.
Right? You can always run a 5K. You can always race walk a 5K, right? Whatever you need to do to be getting through it. And so it looked fun to me. I know it seemed, a marathon after that kind of a bike ride is going to be so hard. And it did look like, it was sunny a lot of the time. I don't think it was like extremely hot, but it was warm. And there was like a decent amount of wind for a lot of the afternoon. So all of those factors kind of come into play of who can manage that. But man, Haley, it was so exciting to see the little battle on the first lap between Laura Phillip and Kat Matthews running like head to head like that. It's like, oh, like this is what we pay for, right? This is what you want to see.
That was so cool. Okay, I'll admit, when I went to sleep, I think Marjolaine Pierre was in the lead on the bike. And then when I woke up, I like immediately put on outside TV, outside watch. And by that point, Laura Philipp was by herself on the run.
Okay.
And I think she was actually on her last lap. And she was actually lapping Danielle Lewis. And so I was like, oh, Danielle's not having a good day. And then I went to the tracker and I'm like, oh my goodness, Danielle's in 12th place. Like Danielle is having an incredible day. Like it is just that Laura is having a world champion day. It was wild. But I am a little sad that I missed the run battle initially right off the bike with Kat and Laura. That looked like it was so cool.
It was, I mean, yeah, it was just cool. I think it's anytime you appreciate sport and you get to see two people who are, you're watching this thing play out and you're just constantly reminded of how hard Ironman is, right? And so to see people doing this and to know what kind of like physical prowess they have and to see them just gutting themselves for this is it's so cool. And so to be witness to that, I think was really neat. And to know, I think we've heard time and time again, like, do people want to watch women's only races, blah blah blah. Like I think, yeah, I think we do, right? It's like super exciting. And I think having the women's only race rolled out the red carpet for a race like that to happen, where we got to witness that kind of thing happen on the run.
Yeah, it looked amazing. Laura Philipp ran a 2:44 marathon, which is so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 6:15 pace per mile off of, like you've said, a very incredible, I mean, she had an incredible bike split. She had the fastest bike split, but then also just came off and ran so well. And I mean, just what a champion. Like that, I was emotional watching her come across the line. And then Kat like held on there for a second and she had some issues on that run, but still ran very well, like a 2:52, I think. And even though at certain points she looked like she was cramping and possibly, wasn't going to be able to continue, but she did.
Yeah. And I think, so it was great to see her. I think some of the others that I found it was really fun. It was great to cheer for Lottie Wilms, IronWomen podcast guest of the season.
Who finished eighth.
Yeah, finished
I mean,
eighth.
top 10, like in the world championship, just so incredible.
Yeah, and Marta Sanchez, who we recently talked to as well, was
Sixth.
Yes, I was like, oh, like it holds true. Come on the IronWomen podcast and you do well at your next big race, right? So yeah, I think it was just fun to get to cheer for these women that obviously I have not been racing myself, but to be feeling like I'm, in the sport and getting to know these women and these stories. Like I hope our listeners appreciate it as much as I do, because it's really fun to get to see them have those great days that they've been dreaming of having after you get to kind of know them a little bit and hear their story.
Yeah, I was so impressed and with, the running and everyone who finished. I think that, and even the athletes, I mean, watching Rachel Zelinskas on the side of the road, like only 7 miles into the bike or something with a broken collarbone, I'm like, oh my goodness, this sport is excessively hard sometimes, but it gives me so much admiration, like I said, for those women, and also for myself. Oh my goodness. Like I said, I've raced some of these women. I was like, they feel like they're superheroes on the TV. And I'm like, wait, but I've been there. I've done that. Wow. I had no idea I was that impressive. And similar with the age groupers, I loved, getting to see actually a few that I knew. And, occasionally they, end up on camera and I'm like, I know her. And it's just so cool that I can't believe that's a woman from my hometown that is currently on a course in France racing this really, really hard event. And I'm like, how cool is it to be like kind of in a plurality with those people? So it was really, really inspiring to watch everyone. And I just think everyone hopefully is, waking up today so proud of themselves.
Yeah, I echo that. It was really cool. The age groupers had smiles on their faces a lot. Definitely some, some carnage out there, but I think people were proud to be there. And again, I think the four loops helps with that, because you're like circling back, seeing a lot more people, right? And so like even some of the pros, there was like 10 to 15 minute gaps in between some of those first you know, handful of people. And so I'm sure they appreciate it too, like having more loops and not just being out there lonely, you know, on the run, to kind of deal with them in their own head. I think it certainly would have helped to like have all of that cheering that was out there. And Nice definitely came out and showed up in a big way. So I think it was definitely a success, I have to say.
Super cool. And I did have some mention about the lack of spectators toward the airport, that turnaround. And I did bring up that in Kona, it's like mile, I mean, Palm is at mile like 6 or 7 now. I feel like it's so early.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the spectators end. And then you are out on the Queen K and the Energy Lab for a long time with no one. And it is honestly one of the psychological battles of Kona is, can you handle that middle, you know, or majority of the marathon nearly alone? And it's hard. It's really hard. So I thought, like you said, it seemed like there was actually way more spectators in Nice than we get in Kona. So just because, again, Kona's like that almost by design, and it is just another challenge of that course. And maybe this is a challenge of Nice, is when you're out by the airport, you do feel like you're far away and there's not a lot of people out there, but then you tell yourself it's only 5 kilometers, it's only 3 miles, I can make it back. I always try to think of like my home, like if I have a 5K route or a 3-mile route from home, and I'm like, I consider that a really short run. So I'm like, it's not that far. I could do that in like a quick little run off the bike or something like that.
Yes. And as a spectator, I will add to this too, that with Nice being a big city, it makes it really nice for spectators because there's a lot of coffee options, a lot of food options right along the promenade that you can kind of hop in and out of very easily. And it's like, yeah, if you were like, man, I want like sushi while I watch this Ironman marathon, you could like get sushi, right? If you're like, no, I want Thai food, right? Like, or I want pizza, right? Like literally anything you felt like you could access pretty easily. And plenty of coffee along the way too, which is always needed for a long spectating day like that. So I found that part, you know, really easy and nice. The only thing I will say is like bathrooms are hard to come by out there. And so we were lucky because we had, like the Airbnb we had was just a block away. So we could hop in and out of there. But otherwise, I think you would want to like stop at a restaurant for lunch, use the bathroom, that kind of thing. But they didn't have like a lot of public bathrooms, I will say, out and about. And I know spectators were struggling with that.
That's hard. Yeah, that is hard. You're like, oh, can I just jump in this porta potty? But those are good tips in case anyone is headed there next year or in 2026 for, you know, or considering that either to race or to spectate. These are some great tips. So
well,
just
Haley, first,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, before we get to your chat with Fiona on this, I do want to make sure we call out that it's race week for you. And so
yes,
you said you're kind of packed, sort of packed. So Haley, you are heading to Ironman Chattanooga this coming weekend. And how are you feeling? Are you excited to be headed back to Tennessee? Do you think it was like an extra boost to have the World Championships? Is some inspiration leading up to this?
I was absolutely an extra boost that I got to watch that racing. I do think I'm someone who actually feels better about my own racing after watching other people race. And I have found that I think the first really big example was when I was an alternate for the Collins Cup. And then I raced the Challenge Championship in Shamorin the next day in 2021. And I got to watch the Collins Cup first. And then it was just, I had so much admiration for everyone that was racing. And I think that helped with my nerves, that I was like, yes, it's okay to be nervous, but you get to be one of those people. Like maybe not the exact same race, but like, why do you admire those people? And it is because they're doing this really hard thing and they're out there just doing it. And everyone who was having a great day I admired, and the people who were having less great days I really admired. And I was able to kind of take that on myself. Whereas like, okay, when you're having a good moment, we celebrate that. But if you're having a tough moment, it's okay. You're still like part of this group. And I think that really helped me. And then some of the T100 races where the men actually have gone first on the first day or earlier in the day, I think that's also helped me a lot. Like I get to see some incredible performances. I get to see, honestly, that the races never play out how I think they will. And then also, even when you see some athletes having really hard days, I realize that I still, again, admire them so much. And so it gives me more grace for myself in case I do have a hard day, you know, It happened. So this actually was perfect timing because I think I was feeling pretty nervous going to Chattanooga. I haven't raced an Ironman since Kona last year. And so, and we all know Ironman is hard. I mean, we follow enough of them that a lot can happen. And I think that seeing Nice so soon before and knowing also what a world championship feels like and also some of the pre-race interviews with some of the women there and them talking about how nervous they are. And I actually thought one of my favorite interviews and quotes was Laura Phillip before the race, how she was saying she'd been so nervous for a few days and she just needed the race to happen so she could go back to being normal. And I was like, I love that. Like, it's so true because I do think I get nervous and a little neurotic before the race. And then the days after are so fun because you're like so much more normal. So I try to remind myself that even the world champion feels this way. And, we just once that gun goes off, you're going to know what to do. You've done this training and let's just see what happens. Give yourself that opportunity. That's what Laura did. And look how it worked out for her. Pretty good. So yeah, I think that was a big boost, a really big boost. I feel like I've done some good training and we'll just see what happens. I think my fellow, I like spoke about this a few weeks ago and I was wrong on the start list and the start list has come out. And I think Sarah True from If We Were Riding is on the start list, which, I was surprised she just won in Canada. So that would, be fun to race with her. I actually think the last time I raced in Chattanooga in 2017, Sarah also raced and had a really incredible day. And then I also had a really incredible day. So maybe she's like my good luck charm.
Yeah.
I'm excited. We'll just see what happens. And I think like, regardless of the outcome, I'm proud of myself for putting myself on a start line. And I actually have 3 athletes who are racing as well, 2 age group athletes, and then 1 pro athlete, Katie Treston Torney. So that's actually a new experience, I think, for me. I don't think I've ever raced with a fellow pro that I've coached. And so I'm embracing that experience as well. I think that will be kind of unique being able to like be in the pro meeting with Katie and be on the start line with her and and then there's, like you said, there's a lot of women we've interviewed who will be there and some we haven't and, new names in the sport. And I'm looking forward to just like, challenging myself on the day and hopefully all the good mechanical luck and just things go smooth. I would love a smooth day. That'd be very nice.
Yeah, I and the rest of our listeners, I'm sure will be just, watching that tracker and wishing you a smooth day for sure and seeing what happens and what unfolds with that opportunity.
Yeah, I have a lot of athletes in the Southeast and it was super hot this past weekend. I think it was like in the 90s Fahrenheit in Chattanooga. And then I think it is supposed to cool off a bit this week. So that's kind of nice for us, for me.
Chattanooga is actually this weekend, right? So like normally it is, I feel like it often falls on that last like really hot weekend of September. And so this feels late. So it's like, it's not, I don't know if they pushed it because of world championships or whatever, but it is nice they picked kind of stretching it out because the South can get really hot still in September. So I think that
I'm sure it will still be warm to me. So I have done some sauna time, which everyone knows how much I love that. But hopefully I'm ready for it. And then the other big race this weekend, Ibiza, T100 Ibiza is happening in Spain. And so we, like those top 4 women from Nice, you had Laura Phillip, Kat Matthews, Chelsea Sodero, Marjolaine Pierre. Top 4 are also, now planning to race again this Saturday in Nice. As well, I'm assuming Lucy Charles Barclay is out of Nice. I'm assuming that with her calf injury that kept her out. She's out. She was out of Nice. She's also out of Ibiza. I'm assuming it didn't. I don't know. Maybe it healed in a week. But and then Annie Haug will get her chance at redemption. So those women will line up with 14, 15 other incredible athletes, and that will be super fun to watch. So hopefully people can tune in either if they want another late night or watch that replay on YouTube or it's fun. There's so much good racing to watch right now.
Yeah, and special thanks to you and our guest this week, Fiona, who was up well past what I would call her bedtime on a race day, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I was able to get a quick interview very soon after the race ended with Fiona Moriarty. But before we get into that, Alyssa, I did just want to recap your picks because I feel like
okay.
we had kind of done some picks ahead of time, and then I listened to the
did more picks. Did I do the same picks?
It was well, we
Similar?
didn't do like your dark mare, your dark horse was the same.
Okay.
But I mean, you had the same picks as a lot of people. I think Annie Haug for the win, Kat Matthews for second, which happened, and
True.
then
I did get that.
and then Lucy Charles Barclay for third, and then so of course like two of your three did not quite make it to the finish line.
Yeah.
So maybe we give you extra points for Kat in second. I feel like getting that. But and then Els unfortunately did not finish. I think my dark mare was Anna Reichman, who also didn't finish. I think she had a crash on the bike. So it was a hard one to pick, but that's why it's so much fun. I mean, I think it's so much fun to do picks sometimes because and be like totally wrong. I mean, that's I don't know. I love it. So, but congratulations on your one.
Thanks. Yeah.
I don't think, again, you weren't alone in that one.
No,
so
luckily I didn't bet my life fortune on that one.
Yeah, but I did talk to Fiona Moriarty, who raced in the women's pro race. She finished 27th, which I think is a fantastic result. She swam around an hour, biked a 5:44, and then finished with a 3:17 marathon. And Fiona, as you mentioned, graciously did a late night post race interview with me, gave me the recap, kind of the rundown of how her day went and what she saw from the course. And I think our listeners will really enjoy this firsthand account. So we'll have that conversation with Fiona Moriarty right after a word from our sponsors. Hi, Fiona. Welcome back to the IronWomen podcast, and congratulations. I am talking to you like I think it's hours, but it feels like minutes after you finished the Ironman World Championship in Nice, France. How are you feeling?
I mean, I'm a little sore, but honestly, this is the best I've held up in a race. Like I have no chafing, so hooray! That feels like a bonus on the day. Like I'm also just super proud and happy with my performance given all of the. It sounds like everyone had their own fair share of like craziness that happened out there. I had mine, and so you just kind of have to manage it on the day. And I'm really proud of the result, proud of the effort, and proud for keeping my head together when things kind of went sideways. So
you should be very proud. You finished 27th at the World Championship on what looked like I mean, there's no such thing as an easy Ironman, but this one looked exceptionally brutal. Just everything about it looked so hard. So I think maybe we just walk through the day and we start with body marking because you were on the coverage with body marking and the volunteer put your tattoo on with the plastic on. And it was one of those things I was watching it and I was like, they forgot to take the plastic off. And I'm sure all of us have had this happen before where like, you're putting on those race morning tattoos and you're like, I didn't take the plastic off, or you put it on upside down, and you would expect like if someone else is doing it for you that they would do it right. But apparently it didn't happen
the poor
that
guy
way.
had never done anything like this before, and I could tell as I walked up to the table that he was getting the like, this is how you do it. And then the minute I saw him stick it on, it was like, oh no, I know the plastic's on there. And he had just sprayed all the stuff on and like didn't hold the paper towel on long enough. So it was the first attempt, nothing came on, and then he just did it backwards. So I'm still, it looks right to you, but it is backwards to me.
It is on backwards. So what do? Do they have like extras? Is that what happened?
Yes. Spoiler alert, they have a secret packet of every single number, but it's just put on like almost a house number. Like they have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, so that they can make any number. And the Ironman official was like, okay, you're just not getting the like logo on this one. That seems too much. Like we just needed to lower the bar for the poor guy that was trying to put it on. So
we love the volunteers, but it's also kind of refreshing to know that volunteers get nervous too. And and also that maybe like, even though I feel like in Europe, they're very sticklers for like rules like that, like numbers and displaying things, bib numbers. And so maybe this was a sign that like it, you know, people can figure it out without it being perfect.
I don't know. To me, it was the sticklerism was on such a wild scale of like I got chased after by an official who told me to put my trash in the trash can during the run, which oddly funny enough, Chelsea Sodaro asked about that directly in the briefing because she got a penalty for it in 2019 and they were like, no, 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 it's not a problem. And this man chased me down the road to be like, put your trash in a trash can.
Wait, so during the race, you had to throw like your cups into a trash can. You couldn't just throw it on the ground?
That was what he was telling me. Like I took a swig of water, dumped it on my head, and like I'm not trying to be inconsiderate, but normally you just toss it on the ground because like they come out with brooms and sweep it up. But this guy he was an official, he had a referee like jacket on and was like, you know, gave me the wag finger and don't do that again and make sure you put it in a trash can. So maybe I was on the verge of getting a penalty.
It's a lot to ask during an Ironman. Like during an Ironman marathon to like make sure you also hit the trash can is a lot to ask. I brought this up because when I raced in Nice in 2019, I got yelled at a lot for my bib number being on the side versus like directly in front of me. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I am like in the very back of this race. Yeah, I'm like, it's fine if no one knows who I am. But also, I'm like, but also like they can figure it out. If something happens, like they can roll my body over and find my name on the side of my leg.
And it's just uncomfortable. Like the positioning of it, it's when you're running, like my arm kept scraping the number. And so I moved it to the side and then I too got the like, Madame, move your number to the front. I'm like, okay, Madame, I just really don't need this right now. On the list of priorities, that's pretty low, but okay.
Yeah, well, the unique rules that we deal with on different courses in different countries with even different officials. Because I definitely, when I watched the coverage, I saw cups being thrown on the ground by world champions. And then I also saw numbers on the side. And so, I mean, at least none of these resulted in an actual penalty, but it does throw you off. But anyway, going back to the start of the race, it was a little bit odd because I was expecting a beach start and then you actually did an in-water start. And so I guess that makes it similar to Kona, which has an in-water start. Do you like an in-water start?
Here's the thing. I've raced is all I'm saying, which for me was like a goose egg. I think it was a little bit of a dead on arrival situation because I had just flown over from Oregon that week. I'd been in a wedding. There was just like a lot of chaos. And then I just arrived in Austria and had to race a couple of days later and my body had not quite come around. And that race and this race have had the two most chaotic in-water starts. I was talking to Grace Tech about it and she was like, oh, I didn't used to know what people talked about at the beginning of the swim, like chaos, how it feels bad and how you just want to quit. It was one of the worst starts, just like elbows and knees and kicking and punching and like it was brutal. And that was in Austria. And then immediately we were unlike Kona where you have that like this rotating circular thing of people on surfboards that keep you back to some degree behind the line. There was nothing. Whoever was the front line was a good 15 meters in front of the start buoys and they were like, eh. So then everyone just cheated upwards because like nobody's giving you a good participation award if you're just 10 meters back and you want to follow the rules. Yes. But once
these aren't the rules we enforce. The start line is not we enforce cups in trash cans.
Yeah, this
not
the
start line. Start whenever you feel like it.
Like, I don't know, go wherever you want. If that was the case, honestly, I should have swam ahead because I got kicked in the mouth, like just like the gun went off and the person in front of me did like a big kind of almost like a butterfly kick and it came up and hit me in the chin. And so my teeth went through my lip and so my mouth filled with blood. So I was like tasting blood, tasting salt water. Kind of it knocked me sideways a little bit and so then the people behind me start swimming over me and like I'm a good swimmer. I should have swam around 57 58 today, like I have that ability, But when you get almost knocked unconscious in the first bit and your whole mouth fills with blood, I just had to like swim kind of to the side to just get my bearings. But then the group was already gone. So I just swam by myself. And my plan was to swim hard to at least the second buoy and then kind of settle into my pace. But then it was really choppy out there. I've swam in the ocean multiple days this week and it's been glassy. And then today, like, of course, whatever ocean gods came out and summoned the massive swells. So you would pick your head up to sight and see nothing but waves. And then all of the kayakers had yellow and red kayaks, and there were 3 buoys for 1,000 meters. So you're looking for tiny yellow buoys that are really far away. And then there were also fishing yellow buoys that were in the water and interspersed with where you were going. So you had to judge the difference between something that was about half the size of a regular buoy, the full buoy, and then the kayakers who were just like going all over the place. And so it was like, where exactly am I heading? And I was mentioning to you earlier, this woman paddled up, like they did not relay the information from the pros to the pro officials to the kayakers, who were told that, you know, age groupers had to keep the buoys on a particular shoulder, and we were told we could go wherever we want. And this woman came up to me and she paddled next to me and then kept hitting me over the head with her paddle, and then whistling with like a, you know, soccer whistle until I stopped, and then screamed at me in French, which I did not understand. Like I have a reasonable amount of French, but not the time or the place, and I'm trying not to lose too much time. And so she's yelling at me, and I'm like, I don't understand. I actually said, I do not understand what you want me to do in the middle of the Ironman swim. And
it's the worst nightmare.
I was thinking that, like, when they say that things can always get worse, like this is worse. This is
being
bad.
yelled at in a foreign language in the middle of the like Mediterranean.
In the middle of the Mediterranean, when you can't actually see where you're supposed to go. So she wanted me to pass the buoys on a particular side. So like, okay, whatever, lady, I figured it out. Keep swimming forward. But then she proceeded to like come with me. And then if she didn't like the line I was taking, she would hit me again. And it was like that.
Did she think she was helping you?
I think
helping you go in a straight line. She was like, I want to help this woman. This poor Irish American.
Like harassment.
Oh, yeah. Wait, so how are you handling this mentally? Are you just like telling yourself it's a long day? Every stroke gets me closer. Just keep yourself going. Like, because you could have, like, there's a part of you, I mean, you're in a wetsuit. You could just like roll over on your back and be like, okay, this has been fun. Take me home, woman.
I did have a brief moment where I was like, well, F this, you know, the pack is gone. My goal was to stay with the pack. I had people in mind that were slightly faster than me that I wanted to swim with. And I was alone. I had no idea if there were people behind me. I could have been the last swimmer out there. Like, it's the freaking ocean and choppy at that. So like I couldn't see anything around me. And so I was like, okay, just get to the turn buoy, you know, at least you'll get a better sense of where you are. And that was what I told myself, even if it was completely untrue. So I just swam towards the turn buoy, which was the only thing that was visible against the swelling ocean. And then as I did that, I could just see somebody's cap that was feasibly in front of me. So I knew like, okay, I'll just go catch that person. I'll catch the next person. And I caught a few people in the swim, and that kept me like motivated enough. And then I've been swimming well, so I knew I could do it. And the wetsuit honestly helped, because you're like, well, at least I'm buoyant and this ocean is super buoyant. So it just like, you know, all I had to do was make it to the shore, and the like pebble doomstone beach, which is like foot murdering that you have to step over to get back up onto shore, was an extra just kick in the pants once you make it back. But yeah, even the sighting buoys to get back to shore were the same black ones that we had left from. So black against blue does not have a great contrast. So you're just trying to see anything. Yeah, it was a lesson in how familiar I needed to be with an M-shaped or a pants-shaped swim course.
Pants-shaped, I like that. But I watched it. I watched the coverage, and so they actually had some decent like drone coverage, which is actually kind of cool to watch as a was a spectator. And some of those, I was like, those buoys feel really far apart. And I'm like, maybe it's just the angle. And like when you're in it, you can see it, but
Nope.
it actually was that bad.
Yeah.
What did you think about that wetsuit announcement? Because we were watching in the morning and it was like, I was thinking, I'm like, oh my goodness, if I was there by myself and I hadn't brought my wetsuit, I'd be like running back to like the hotel or something, trying to get my wetsuit. And I'm like, how do you do this logistically if it's such a surprise for everyone?
And it was interesting for multiple reasons because we had the swim on Wednesday, the practice swim, and I jumped in and was like, "Ooh, that's a little colder than I was expecting." But we all, except for Marjolaine, we all swam in swim skins. Jackie Herring just jumped in a bathing suit, so it was like, well, whatever, everyone's just doing the practice swim. But I was surprised at how cold I felt in the water, and then I went for another swim, yesterday or something to get ready for the race. And it took me the entirety of it to feel not cold. So I had a feeling that if that was the tendency, that I should have my wetsuit anyways. And I traveled to Europe with my wetsuit, so I just knew to bring it. And then Lauren, Brandon, and I have been traveling together, and I don't know who she heard it from, but she texted me last night and said, "Hey, bring your wetsuit. I've been hearing rumblings of it being, for wetsuits, like wetsuits being a strong possibility." So I had mine with me, but I was at body marking this morning with Laura Phillip, the woman who won, and she did not have her wetsuit. Ever heard of her? She didn't have her wetsuit, and so she was like, frantically trying to find someone with a cell phone because she didn't have her phone with her because Phillip took all of her stuff so that she could then text him to go get her wetsuit. So yeah, people were in that situation.
I know. Oh. I just like, I'm picturing myself in that situation and I'd be like, oh my goodness, I'd be doing like a little warm up sprint back to wherever I left that. But glad Laura got her wetsuit and ultimately won that race. But moving on to this bike course, because this is what everyone was talking about leading up to it. I will admit it was on pretty late here in the US and I had to force myself. Like once finally they went to a commercial and so I stopped watching because it was so beautiful to watch, but also like so brutal. And I want to know what it was like to actually ride it.
It passed pretty quick. I wouldn't say quickly because it was a long, slow day generally for everyone that wasn't Kat and Laura, but it was stunning. It was beautiful. I mean, the front loaded 6,000 to 7,000 feet of climbing. I don't know. It took us 3 hours to do like the first 40 miles. Like it was intense. But I think at least for me, I enjoyed it. Like I had legs for it, which meant like, yeah, there were parts where you're like, okay, I'm seriously done with this climbing because what looked flat, that like part plateau along the top, that part I rode with Lauren the other day, and it is not flat. It was like basically slow and kind of grindy upwards for the most part. And you would get like brief breaks where you would descending like a steep something. So you would get, your heart rate would go from like low 160s to like 130, but then it got cold. Like it started to sprinkle a little bit. And like I stopped feeling my toes after a while. So you were actually kind of looking forward to the climbs to get your blood pumping again. But I love descending. So I loved the descent, but it was far too open to cars. Like there was a clip of Danielle Blamel almost getting hit by a car. I had probably 2 sketchy moments and one like, oh, there's a man turning into me and about to hit me, where you just scream like, ah, like no, 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 and hope that they hear you. So that part was pretty challenging, and it was extremely windy. Once we got up to the top, everything was exposed, so you're just battered by the wind, and I rode by myself for the majority of it. So like, if you see a tendency in the bike times for people who rode in groups to go like probably 10 minutes faster, there is a reason for that. Like the wind was a really big challenge. And I feel for anyone like Rachel Zolinkas, whose day ended so early, she broke her collarbone, because it's just one look direction and you're hitting, they're not speed bumps, they're speed tables. It's like a ramp and then a flat part and then a ramp down, and there were cracks in the road and all that, but like you had to be on at all times. It was not Kona where you put your head down and like assert power. It was head on a swivel, looking for cars, looking for stuff on the ground. And of course, looking at the ridiculous views, which just made this course like so unbelievably special. At one point, they even had us go down 3 steep switchbacks, and they added a chicane, which was like these barriers that they put in the middle of the descent to go make us go slower. But you're going around hairpin turns, so you're already going slow. But we had never seen it, so you're like, I guess I squiggle around these things. Okay. So it was there were some surprises too.
Oh, that is a unique course. Do you feel like your course, excuse me, your course recon helped a lot?
My course recon helped a lot, but I would say if you look at the people who, like Penny Slater had an outstanding performance, and she was here for 5 weeks, I think, on the course, living, breathing, doing it over and over again. Obviously, Kat and Laura have been here for camps. Marjolaine lives here, or like spends a lot of time here. The more familiar you were with it, the less risky some of those descents felt, easier it was to ride through, traffic circles and stuff. And Arrow, like, we all know the roads around our houses because we ride them all the time. The difference here is that knowing a corner well enough to take it either in the bars or like, in the way that you know how to do it versus like, I think this is the right line, like fingers crossed, but I'm still going to be a little tentative. I mean, I think it's clear in the results that familiarity definitely helped.
And then what about this run? 4 laps right along the Promenade des Anglais. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. This iconic road right by the Mediterranean, all the way to the airport and back, which actually, like, when I think about when I went to Nice, I'm like, oh my gosh, like the airport feels so far, but it's kind of like Kona, the airport in Kona. Maybe this is like why it's a world championship. You have to run to the airport.
Yeah,
but yeah, how was the run for you?
Run to the airport. I mean, the run.
Did you come off the bike feeling ready to run? I mean, that was such an intense bike, and it did take longer than Kona. I mean, you're on the bike for longer, so I assume you're eating more, but you're also, I mean, when you're on the bike that much longer, like, how's your headspace when you're getting onto that run?
I think you have this like immense gratitude to be getting off the bike, because even if you had a great time, it's like, okay, the risky stuff is over. At least I have 2 feet on the ground, and it might be a suffer fest, but like my feet are on the ground and I'm not going to crash, hopefully, at least physically, maybe metaphorically, but it was more like I just felt happy to be out there, and especially the first mile or so was just so packed with people. I've never had that many people I don't know yelling my name, and at first it was like, oh my God, how do they know me? She says with a giant Fiona, across her. She's like
directly in the front, thanks to every official that makes sure. Maybe that's why they just want you to have more cheers.
I guess so. But yeah, there were a bunch of Irish folks that like would cheer for me very loudly when I went by, which was really lovely. And Precision Hydration was like out here in Force, and they're one of my sponsors. So they were great. But you had a tailwind going one direction, so it's like, I'm flying, but also slightly hotter. So my first couple miles were like 6:40, 6:35, and I was not intending to run a 6:40 marathon, but it was almost impossible to not run that fast when you have a tailwind and like the general excitement of being, buoyed by the crowd. But then once you got beyond, I don't know, mile 2 was it was bleak, like going out towards the airport. They like shunt you onto this bike path, which has lots of like kind of gaps and holes and cracks in it, so you don't want to trip and break an ankle. And there was just nobody out there. So one way you felt great, turning around, running back towards transition was just like a headwind the whole way. So that was cool. I just told myself it was cooling and that it was fine.
Were you hot on the run? Was it warm?
I mean, I was so excited to see cloud cover, like a max high of 70 degrees. I am not an athlete who thrives in the heat. So when it got like a little bit sunny, I was like, okay, this feels vaguely warm. But Austria was like cooking. It was 86 or something on race day when we were running. So this felt like, yeah, it's warm, but like whatever, and a little humid. They had some ice So a couple of aid stations you could get ice. But that was one of the things I've heard from a couple of athletes that was actually quite a challenge, was that our personal needs were combined with the pro fluid station, but they didn't make that clear to us. So there was fluids, and then you would see the age group personal needs, all the bags lined up, and it was the same color as ours. So we went by and we're like shouting our numbers out, and they're like, it's back there, like 400 meters. So both Lauren and myself missed our personal needs, which didn't help me because I have a super sensitive stomach. So like the stuff I use is the stuff I use, and anything on course is gonna usually upset my stomach. But like I can't run 6 miles without any nutrition. So that's what happened. And it was somewhat frustrating, but like that's kind of racing. Everyone goes through the same thing, but maybe in the future, probably make it clear that our stuff was just oriented differently than what we would expect.
Because in Kona, our personal needs are with the age groupers. It is
Correct.
With that. So what else, like how did it compare to Kona? You raced in Kona last year with the all women's Ironman World Championship in Kona. And I think, how did this one compare? This was the first time that the all women's Ironman World Championship has been in Nice. What are some of the similarities and differences?
I mean, I think Kona just brings a level of anxiety that is not good for anybody just like being there. Maybe some people thrive off that like nervous type A energy, like geared up to 120%, but I don't know. Best performances don't come from feeling like, which I think just kind of comes Kona. Here, Nice is such a big city that like, yeah, we were here, but like so are a gajillion tourists who have literally no idea that it's going on. So there wasn't the same level of like take over the city-ness. I did see some funny things like restaurants and stuff close by would have like the Ironman meal. So we weren't totally, totally not noticed by the city, but I did feel such a warmth like at both this and in Kona, a women's only event where your race is the most important thing of the day, where our start time is our start time, and it's not planned around anybody else's, and that's like your race is unaffected by people passing through the field. I think you'll notice in some of the results that like it was a lot harder to move through the bike pack because there's also no men that like kind of allow people to stay attached, I think, at times. And I had so many wonderful wonderful conversations this week with people who were genuinely just excited to be here and test what they could do. Like it was such an unknown for everyone that level of like, I'm not quite sure, but I'm so happy to be here is, I think it allowed a lot of great performances to come from a place of not knowing and being like, I'm just going to do my best and have no expectations. And made people a lot more open to talking and just like kind of connecting with other humans rather than being like, I need a 9 flat law of 8:30, whatever time. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just when you come from a place of, I'm going to do my best versus I have this expectation for myself, it brings the temperature down a lot.
Interesting.
Literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, I know. At least like I know the temperature, humidity was probably a little bit milder than Hawaii, but the coverage I thought was just so fun to watch. I had so much admiration for all of you racing, and it made me feel very cool to be a pro triathlete. I think I was just like, oh, I'm kind of one of these people. Like this is a little crazy, but also I have so much admiration. This is so brave. And so thank you for that inspiration from home. I was able to kind of see it. We don't always get to see it from this side and really get to watch a race unfold. And I think it can be actually kind of healthy sometimes to realize what we do is so hard and so impressive and so incredible.
And I think this course brought that out even a little bit more. Like, not that Kona is its own challenge, but everything was the hardest of the hard today. Like a choppy ocean swim with not a lot of buoys that like people still did really well at. A course with 8,000 feet of climbing with technical descents where you were like, you had to be so on it all day long, and then a run that followed a 5+ or more hour bike that you just had There was no change of pace. There was no anything. It was like running on a treadmill for 2-3 hours straight, which some of us do by choice anyways, but nevertheless, it was just, yeah, it was everything kind of thrown at you in a place that really respects cyclists and that has like cycling as part of its culture. So it was pretty special.
And I know you did an incredible pre-race camp in Girona with Lauren Brandon. You mentioned that. Are you getting to do a little bit of sightseeing afterwards? Do you have plans? Because I do feel like the French Riviera is a really nice place to relax.
Well, I mean, just adding on to this month of crazy, you were also at my wedding, which was not that long ago. So keep in mind, I did just get married. We did not go on a honeymoon so that I could train and get ready for world champ. So we're going to do like just a couple of days in Italy just to, I don't know, like recognize that we did get married, because both of us went back to work 2 days later and we're like, oh, the operational explosion just kind of continued on through Nice. So it's high time to just take a breather and just relax.
Well, it's so impressive. I do love the YouTubes that your new husband, Josh, put out leading into this race. I watched the one, I think I was waiting for like the coverage to start and your new one came out and I was like, yes, I have 15 minutes. Perfect. So we will link to those in our show notes. Make sure everyone checks it out because it is really fun just to get to see what it's like to prepare for the Ironman World Championships. And Fiona, congratulations. Much deserved relaxation time in Italy. I hope you have an amazing, honeymoon, I guess, / Ironman recovery. And congratulations. And thank you again for coming on and sharing the story so soon after your finish.
Oh, you bet. Thanks so much. I'm happy to share. And yes, please, people, if there's any way that you could possibly support what we're doing by just watching the YouTubes, I think it would make a big difference to both Josh and me. So would love that.
Big thank you to Fiona for giving us that so prompt and fresh recap of the day at the Women's Ironman World Championships in Nice, France. So fun to hear her firsthand account and her YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, so much fun to watch these videos, Alyssa. It's just under her name, Fiona Moriarty. So if you Google Fiona Moriarty YouTube or search in YouTube for Fiona Moriarty, you will find it and can't miss it. But really, really cool videos of her lead up to that race in Nice, her adventures in Europe with Lauren Brandon, which are so fun to just get to see that firsthand account again, what pro life is like. And then I'm sure there'll be more recaps and videos to come in the next couple weeks, especially once she's done with her honeymoon. Hopefully she gets some downtime and Josh gets some downtime too. But I just think these insights are fun to watch. Even as someone who's also lived it, it's kind of fun to see someone else, living a similar but also different path. I've never been to Girona, and I think getting to see Girona is kind of cool.
Yeah, I agree. Sounds like some great trainer and treadmill material for us all. So we'll all tune in. Thanks, Fiona.
Yes, especially since we're heading into the trainer time of year, at least here in the Northern Hemisphere. And Alyssa, I didn't ask in the intro, but how is your knee doing? Because this was a big ask on your knee. You had surgery a few months ago now, but it's still healing. I know you were up to a quarter mile of walking, and I'm assuming you probably walked a lot more than a quarter mile.
I did. Yeah. So it held up really well, I will say. I, made a pretty good plan with my PTs going into this trip that of kind of these next few weeks, what I would be focusing on and things. And basically what we were just finding is that as soon as I got cleared to do some cardio again, any cardio again, my ski erg basically, I was okay, every day I'm just going to hit the ski erg for 20 to 30 minutes, nothing excessive. Right. And then also do my PT for the day and things like that. And so, but what we were finding is just that as I mentally started to feel incrementally better and better, and then I was adding in the quarter mile walks, my knee just still is moving forward, but moving forward slower than my progression of activity was moving forward. And so we kind of had to reconfigure it last week for me to refocus the priorities still on the strength and PT, and just still try to keep cardio and that kind of stuff out of mind as if I get to the afternoon and I've already done my like strength or PT for the day, then that's like the priority. And then I could do some cardio. But like my goal has to be like, is this going to make me feel good for tomorrow so that I will be able to get up and do my PT without my knee being swollen, right? And so because if you do PT on a swollen knee, it's like banging on a rock, basically. Like you need the swelling to be going down so that you're like really activating the quad, you're like really just giving the knee joint like the most kind of movement it can have and things like that. So if you are irritating it and it's swollen and you're trying to do PT, you're like really not getting very far. So luckily I have PTs that aren't afraid to be like, Alyssa, hold up, like you got to slow your horses here a little bit. And so the plan was actually to like, you know, they knew this was a work trip for me for all intents and purposes. And so, you know, I was going to have to be on my feet. I was going to have to walk around. And so, you know, I wasn't like obsessively keeping track of walking, but I was like, yeah, I'm clearly walking more than a quarter or half a mile at this point. So, and they knew that. And they basically said, listen, like, do what you need to do, right? Don't be like excessively walking if you can help it. You know, try and make the best choices with that in mind, but then do the PT at the end of the day in France. And so, and like I have different tracks of PT, and this is all riveting, I know, for people to find out about PT, where it's like non-weight bearing exercises and weight bearing exercises, right? And so like I alternate those by every day. And so if I walked a lot in France and it was a weight bearing day and my knee was swollen, like just skip the PT, right? Like get your leg up, get to bed, get to rest, like, and see how it is in the morning, and like just try and kind of, you know, activate as much of the recovery things you can do to it as possible. And so that's what I've been focused on. It was holding up pretty well. Yesterday was clearly pretty hard on it. And so I woke up today and it's definitely like swollen, where I've been, you know, it was nice that it was kind of a overcast, very rainy morning, because I was able to just get compression on it, kind of lie with it up and try and get that swelling back down. And so, you know, travel, it didn't love the travel and the plane flight and stuff, but I think it recovered, like it bounced back pretty well after that too. So we have a, you know, I'll have a check-in basically the day at home on it. And so I'm excited because I think that I haven't set anything back, and I'll be able to like continue moving forward here as I go. But it's a long road ahead still, Haley. I mean, you know, to be honest, I'm certainly not like, okay, I was walking here and it was fine, so I'll be able to walk, you know, a mile or two at home. Like that's not the case.
Yeah, I was feeling for you. I mean, I feel for you even just like with the travel piece, because I'm like, oh my goodness, some airports, like you are definitely walking more than a quarter mile.
Yeah.
Like between gates. I mean,
Yeah.
those places can be tough to navigate. And then you also have some luggage, but I'm glad you were able to make the trip. I'm glad you were, you know, your knee is doing okay, at least with it. And that you have, like you said, those PTs who are able to get a little creative and plan around your non-traditional work schedule. You're not just necessarily sitting at a desk. How was the swimming with a buoy? Did we get any naked swimming, or was it all fully clothed?
It was all fully clothed, Haley, but I will say I like loved being here. So there was the swim group. So we were able to just kind of like, the nice thing is you can swim anywhere. So if you book accommodations like further down from the swim start and stuff, the ocean is the ocean, like in front of all of the promenade, basically, right? So you can just like kind of go out where you are to get your swimming, and you don't have to travel to the swim start unless you like specifically want to, right? And so, and there's like buoys out, like there were like triangle buoys in like other places too. So I don't know what it was, but it was nice. It made for like a great place to swim. But one of the mornings we went down there, and there was like it looked like a local swim group also met in the mornings around the time we were there. And it was just like older people, right? So like definitely older, retired, like well past retirement age. And there were these two older women who were like so cute. They were wearing like old fashioned bathing caps with like the chin strap, like not a neoprene cap, just like the old fashioned kind. And they were like, you know, not steady on their feet walking around, right? And so the swim, you've been here, right? It's like, it's kind of like a steep little drop off to get in the water, and the, you know, it's not huge waves coming in, but little waves are coming in and pulling you out, and right. So it's like a little, you know, just dicey kind of getting in and out every time. Not dicey is a strong word. It's just, you have to pay attention, I guess.
Yeah.
But these old ladies, Haley, were so cute. They were like linking arms and like helping each other in. And then like one accidentally fell, and then the wave was like taking her back. But she was totally fine, right? She was just like hysterically laughing, and they just looked like they were having a blast. And I was like, oh, I want to live in Nice as like a 80-year-old woman and just be like with my friend in my bathing cap, like, you know, just swimming for my morning float is what, I mean, it was basically what they're doing. So that story aside, I did bring my pull buoy here, and continued my swimming with my pull buoy tradition for a while, but I kept the bathing suit on, and I think people were probably pleased with that.
This is like the longest outro of all time because I obviously had a lot of things, but the other big thing this weekend was that Tara Dower Appalachian Trail overall record. She did it. We need to get this proper time next week, and maybe maybe you can use your connection, and maybe sometime in the future we have her on the show.
Yeah, I am definitely
we'll put on our wish list.
Pull some strings. I think her and her good friend Rascal, her crew person, will come on the show. I always feel bad asking right away, but in this instance, I actually will ask to get on the schedule, right away, because I love what she did. I think it's awesome. I know she wants to share it and inspire as many people as she can. And gosh, I had tears, like goosebumps. It was just so cool. And God bless social media where we could watch the live stream of it happening. And so for people who hadn't heard a few weeks ago when we kind of talked about this or hadn't been following, Tara Dower took 13 hours off the overall Appalachian Trail record for the fastest known time with a supported style of record. And she beat Carl Sabe, who Barkley finisher. People kind of thought his record was going to be untouchable for quite a while. She took like 5+ days off of Jennifer Farr Davis's Appalachian Trail record that was set many years ago. And so she just really raised the bar, I think, for everyone, kind of just totally knocked the ceiling of possibilities like open for everyone in terms of like encouraging people to dream bigger. And I will say, it's so cool to see. I mean, to have a woman back as the queen of the Appalachian Trail, I think is so rad. It's so
cool.
It's awesome.
Okay. Well, we'll properly address that on a future episode, but Alyssa, this has been fun catching up. Safe travels to you on your way home. And hopefully I have some good stories from Chattanooga next week.
Yeah, Haley, race hard, have fun, and I can't wait to hear all about it.
Bye, Alyssa.
Bye.
You've been listening to the IronWomen podcast hosted by Haley Chura and Alyssa Godesky.
IronWomen is a production of Feisty Media and is edited by Lydia Russell and produced by Ella Natishan.
Head to livefeisty.com to find more podcasts, stories, and fresh perspectives.
Thanks for listening.